Hi everyone. We are the Create Editor team. This is our weekly catch up on the uh, development of the rich text editor scaffolding and the refactoring of the wiki edit page today. So the goal of today's meeting is just providing some status updates and catching up on what progress we've made so far. Probably I should share the agenda document. Uh, okay, so yeah, let's start with the rich text or scaffolding. I am the person who is doing the main effort here. And last week, I focused on creating the let's say like the main structure where the components will be implemented. This is the link to the merge request. And right now, what I'm doing is figuring out what is the best way of distributing the editor. So the idea is that when we import, I'm gonna open this merge request. When we import GitLab UI in GitLab, um, we usually use this kind of import statement where we import the entire package. But what I'm thinking about is if we want to catch the rich text editor, because the rich text editor is not going to be updated as often as GitLab UI, perhaps we can put it in a separate bundle uh, that we can distribute in a separate JavaScript file that will be updated less often, and we can take advantage of caching. Uh, so I received some feedback from IT, and he told me that having a separate bundle for the rich text editor was not necessary because GitLab UI supports tree shaping. So that means that Webpack is going to remove the rich text editor component and its dependencies when the editor is not imported like specifically, or it's not specified in the import statement. I thought like, well, okay, that's great. Then I think that I shouldn't be adding like creating a separate bundle then. But then I thought about caching. And I think that if we put everything within the GitLab UI main bundle, then we cannot take the same advantage of caching as using an independent one. So that's what that's the status of that merge request now. Not sure if you have like any thoughts or observations.
I think it sounds good since it's tree shakeable, so it should be okay to not have its own bundle. And for loading things asynchronously, I think the whole rich text editor should be loaded asynchronously because in Wiki editor we have 4 types of uh, like formats that we support, like Markdown, RDoc. Uh, I was working on this last week. So there's Markdown, RDoc, ASCII and there's one more. So just a second, there's someone at the door. But yeah, basically, yeah. So we should load it asynchronous. Just hold on a second.
Okay, let me take a note of that.
So you said you thought it should be a separate bundle?
Yes,
Is that different than what Himanshu was just saying?
it is the same.
Okay.
It's the same thing. He's saying that
Yeah, I'm back.
then the other layer of information that Himanshu is providing is that since we support different formats in the wiki other than Markdown, um, we probably want to load the editor asynchronously because you may start with a different format. And then once you decide to use a markdown format, then you can load the editor asynchronously. That's what you mean, pretty much, right?
Yes, that's what I mean. But yes, my point was that separating TipTap as its own asynchronous import does not make sense, since like it's not an optional import. We need it for the restrict editor anyway.
Yes, but I'm thinking about not like loading TipTap asynchronously because well, the only component that is gonna use TipTap is the rich text editor. So if we load the rich text editor asynchronously, we are loading TipTap asynchronously as well. What I want to do is like find a way of taking all of those dependencies that are gonna add up to 500 kilobytes or something like that, and only load it first when you are opening a page that is using that component. A second, to make the loading efficient by having a separate package that is cached and it's only updated when we actually publish an update of the rich text editor, which I think that over time is gonna be less frequent. As the editor mature, we are gonna be releasing less updates of the editor because we don't have like more features to implement. Uh, but on the other hand, if we put it in the same bundle as all of the other GitLab API components, we are gonna be updating that bundle every time that anything updates GitLab UI. Sorry, GitLab UI.
Yes, but as long as people are not importing uh, rich text editor, Webpack should automatically do its magic and separate rich text editor based on how common is it to import this thing. But yes, to be on a safer side, like it does make sense to have a separate bundle, especially if it doesn't really require much effort.
Well, I'm gonna let's see what also IP says about this. But thanks for these thoughts. Uh, so yeah. Then next like my next step would be to add the dependencies and set up the test environment. Since we talked last week about having a pairing session or scheduling pairing sessions today. I was wondering if if we could like set up one perhaps tomorrow or later this week to work on this. I know, Chad, that you were interested in helping with this as well. So I would love if you can participate.
Yeah, it sounds good. We can do a pairing session for either of uh, or even both of the issues that we're working on.
Yeah, uh, I'm happy to help with the test environment. Do you have a separate issue or MR for that yet to follow?
I have a separate issue, but I haven't started any mark yet. Let me share the link to the issue. Cool. Okay, so I'm gonna send both of you a calendar invite, and I'm also gonna share it in the team calendar. I think that Paul may be interested in this as well. Cool. So that's all on my part.
Okay. So yeah, so I've been working on the Vue migration for our edit page, so I can actually share my screen, and it's still quite a bit of work in progress. Just let me share the screen. So yeah, this is the edit page, and this is the edit form that we have, this particular part, including the buttons. So this is what we need to convert to Vue. So I have had a little bit of success in like I did some work last week and today on this, and I was able to convert these three inputs to Vue, and I just need to like port some logic of wikis.js to it. So yeah, we now initialize a new wiki form app, which has the three inputs right now. So I'll soon be adding the fourth content input as well. So that should actually make it work. So there are two different states that this form is in. You either open a new page or you either edit a page. So that's quite simple enough. I just this is the XAML file, and I just pass whatever content was used in the XAML file to the form Vue.js file as data elements. So yeah, I still need to figure out if the built-in Vue.js component for rendering Markdown is going to work for us or not. If it does, then that should be quick work, and I think we should be able to wrap this up at least code-wise in 1 or 2 days, and then we can figure out about the failing tests and all those things.
So, are you gonna in the case of the content field, are you like just creating a text area and then using the same JavaScript field, like the same component? I think it's like a jQuery component that is used in the Hammer version, or are you like migrating to something like to a markdown field that is implemented on Vue?
So I'll be using the same component that is used in Notes. So since that is already in, I think the notes are, I'm not sure about it. Are you aware if the notes, I mean the comments anywhere are actually implemented using Vue.js, or is that also XAML? I think the comments are in Vue. So the main issue is that if we have a component for this already, I just need to look into it. And if we have this component for the Zen mode, I think we should have a component for Zen mode also. Yeah, it's very buggy. So we should be able to just replace this as it is.
I didn't remember the same mode. I guess that should be like an impediment, right? To use the Vue component.
Yeah, there should be let me just look at uh, yeah, just a second. No, it's not a component. But yeah, there's a lot of issuable components that use this thing, so we should be able to like replicate how they are doing stuff. So we should be able to do it ourselves as well. I think we'll need to use a regular text area and then reapply whatever other components are applying. It's like Zen mode and things like enabling GitLab flavored markdown.
So I wonder if if the purpose of this migration is making easier to integrate the rich text editor that is going to be implemented in Vue. Do you think that
Actually,
is? Mhm.
uh, your voice was cutting off. Yeah, I didn't really catch what you were saying.
Oh, sorry. I was I was going to say that if the goal of this migration is to to make easier the integration with the rich text editor, perhaps it's not even worth it to migrate from the editor used by the wiki to the markdown field that is implemented in GitLab. Perhaps what the only like our main goal should be just like making sure that this editor is using Vue.
I think we can do it even without Vue. It's just a good to have thing that we are porting this particular form entirely to Vue. It I mean, we cannot really reuse all the good things yet. Like even after you convert it to Vue, you would still have to convert it to use GL components, because GL components use a different kind of style and Wiki is still in old style. So I'm even though I'm migrating into Vue, we still need a second step of migrating it to GL components, which uh, is quite a bit of work. But then again, it's not really necessary. My point is that we could wrap the Ristex editor in a component of itself and then just initialize the component through HAML. And we can do that selectively based on whether Markdown is uh, selected or not. And yeah, we can do that little bit of code in traditional JavaScript as well. But yeah, it's good to have good to convert it to Vue first.
Yeah, what I meant was like right now I don't know how to fully describe it, but the wiki is using for Markdown 18 this component that well this component that is using that has support like for autocomplete and in Markdown, right? But it also has support for the other formats like ASCII doc and things like that. So
Yes.
those the markdown field component, the view component has support for ASCII doc, or what do you do? What do we do in that case? Uh, like for links, like for adding links in a different format. Like, can we use that component with the other formats that are not markdown?
Yeah, so it's a little bit tricky. Uh, so we do need to figure out like even if we include a Markdown preview renderer, uh, like it needs a little bit of research and work. I cannot really say right now uh, what kind of work it would be,
So I
but
was
yeah.
confused. It seemed to me like you were saying different things. You and Enrique were saying convert it to Vue, but don't try to reuse the the editor components from the issuable and other places. Just make it like have the exact same behavior that the Haml form did, which is a plain text area or whatever, right? So, but Himanshu, you were saying you're talking about not even converting it to Vue at all, but I don't think that's what you were saying, Enrique. You're saying convert it, but keep it simple and just duplicate exactly the current behavior of the Haml.
No, what I'm saying is those the Vue component, the markdown field component that is implemented in Vue and is used by the issuable form, supports the other types of formats like the ASCII doc and the other formats. If
Right,
we
and we don't want to add the rich text support for that, right? But you're still
Yeah,
saying to convert it to Vue, but with exactly the same behavior, not that?
yeah. I just actually looked at it and it's very buggy. Uh, that in the sense that whenever you try to preview, like it gives you a preview of Markdown only, even though you are previewing ASCII doc or RDoc, which is very strange. So like if you go to the preview tab on the wiki edit page, it's going to give you a Markdown preview regardless of whether you have Markdown or RDoc or ASCII doc selected. So I think if we don't support those previews, we should probably disable them altogether.
That's right. Uh, I I actually saw that as well, and I thought that perhaps our support of ASCII doc is just like limited to the links or things like that. Because I took an ASCII doc like I made a test where I defined a link using the ASCII doc format, and then the editor used the Markdown API endpoint to generate the preview. And it seems like the Markdown API endpoint also supports rendering ASCII doc.
Okay. Uh, I mean, not really everything, not fully, but I think that makes things easier for us. So if we already have a Markdown renderer component in Vue, you can just reuse it directly. Since the wiki Markdown Haml code also like points to the Markdown renderer only, we don't really have separate renderers for other components. My point about not migrating to Vue was that we're migrating it to Vue anyway, but uh, this is a non-blocking effort towards this is not does not really block implementing restricts editor uh, in Vue. It would be just a little bit of more effort, like adding some lines of initialization code to initialize the restricts editor through Haml instead of Vue.
Yes, I think that we're on the same page. I think that what you are saying is like, let's take the form, like the entire form, and let's migrate it to Vue. So then this content field that is like the place where you put either Markdown or ASCII doc, let's keep it with the same component that is being used right now, because the Markdown field doesn't support those type of content, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that this it's not going to be a blocker. The only real blocker that we have is like not having the form implemented in Vue. But other than that, like migrating that content field to the component that is used in the usables is not required at all.
You mean I don't really understand. You mean the we still need to migrate all of it to Haml, right? We are still doing it anyway.
Yes, let me share my screen. I think that I can help myself by providing some visuals. So I'm talking about two components. Let me open the wiki form. So we have the ND preview
Yeah.
that is implemented in Handle and is implemented using vanilla JavaScript. It's not implemented using Vue, right?
Yeah.
And then we have this markdown field that is implemented in Vue. But this is not used in the wiki. This is used for issues, for merge requests, and for nodes, right?
Okay.
What
Yeah,
I'm
can you
saying
just,
is,
yeah, can you just check if it supports just a second. We just need to see if that that supports Zen mode, and there's another include that is shared /notes/hints. I'm not sure what that does, but
so what I was saying is that I don't know if this Vue component supports ASCII doc and supports other types of content. Uh, so given that, like, I don't know how expensive it would be to adapt this component to support all of those wiki formats. Perhaps we should focus on migrating all of these forms to Vue, but try to find a way of reusing this ND preview component that is used within the wiki, because in that way we don't have to spend a lot of time trying to adapt this Vue component, because at the end what we want to do is like to start using the rich text editor in the wiki.
yeah, I think I'll take a look at it today. So this is the only input that is left for migration. So I think it should be we should be able to like use the markdown field component here, but yeah, need to confirm whether all the features of the wiki form align with what the Vue component supports.
That's good. Yeah, after
But
that
is that different than what you were saying, Enrique? You were saying don't use this at all, right?
yeah, but then what he might be saying is that we don't have enough information to know if it is easy or difficult to use that Vue component. So he wants to do some investigation before making
Okay.
that decision.
It was cutting out.
Yeah, from what I can see, the Vue component already supports all the things like previewing, Zen mode, and all the shortcuts like Vue, like bold, italic, and everything. So we should be able to use it. We just need to look at in a deeper sense, like what exactly are the differences.
Sounds good.
So we would have to implement that ourselves if we did it. We didn't use that component.
That's
Yeah.
right. Like if that component doesn't support the wiki specific features, then we would have to implement it ourselves.
Yeah, there's nothing wiki specific about the Markdown previewer. It's the same shared file that is rendered in wiki and in merge requests and in issues. So there's nothing wiki specific about it. And yeah, irrespective of what the format of the document is, it still goes to the same endpoint to render Markdown.
Oh, well, in that case, it should be easy. I think
Yeah.
that it should be easy. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Cool. So do we have anything else to cover?
I think that's it. We can talk about uh, planning our pair programming session, like what exactly we are going to do there, and we what like like- and what the suggested time would be for the session.
Um, okay, so uh, the goal would be the goal is setting up like, well, first the idea is that we are going to implement uh, the research editor is going to work with the markdown preview endpoint, right? So it's going to take the output of the API of the API call, and it's going to convert it into a pros mirror document. So the idea is that we have features that are generated by the markdown API endpoint, and we use those features to test the pros mirror, the tip tap slash pros mirror extensions. So the goal of the pairing session would be to make progress on doing that, like setting up a CI environment that, yeah, sorry, setting up a CI job that generates those features by making the calls to the API, and then setting up the JS specs to make use of those features.
So the the extensions is what we're writing, right? Those don't exist yet, or they're
There are extensions that don't exist, but there are extensions that exist, but we need to make sure that they work with the Markdown API endpoint. For example, there is a bold extension that is, it takes care of setting up bold text. But then this extension, we should make sure that it knows how to interpret bold text coming from the Markdown API endpoint.
Yeah, I would start just by focusing on getting the end-to-end plumbing with a simple case. Like bold is good. So from what I understood before, there's going to be two parts of it. There's going to be the part that runs as a scheduled job that is going to generate and probably commit to the repo like some characterization golden master type things. That would probably be like just an HTML file. Like, here's some markdown, just a bold tag. Here's the resulting HTML. And that would be one HTML file committed. And then the JavaScript tests would then use that HTML file as the fixture to assert against what the output of TipTap and Pose Mirror was, right?
That's right, 100%.
Okay, so maybe we could break it down. I would break that down into the two parts. Let's just start by writing the plumbing that proves we can call the API and commit an HTML file. Then the next step would be to write the JavaScript which uses that.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it would need a little bit of work in the pipelines as well, because right now everything executes in parallel. So you need to probably set dependencies if your fixtures depend on, because the fixtures.
I
Yeah,
think that you don't need to worry about that. Like, you can just assume, like, we're not going to turn on the JavaScript tests until the HTML files exist, right? So the schedule files will run, they will check them in, and then in some future commit, like, we won't ever implement a JavaScript test until the corresponding HTML file already exists. So you don't have to worry about that sort of dependency of like trying to introduce the file and commit it and use it in the same pipeline, because that really doesn't work. You can't introduce a new commit and then test it in the same pipeline. It's just because the pipeline is for a single commit.
By the way, Chad, why?
but why would you generate commit exactly?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question. Why do we need to commit the fixtures? Why don't we just like create them as temporary files?
Uh, I don't know. I was two reasons. To when you make the API calls are inherently going to be flaky. I know this from the dev ones. The API calls, they just fail. You get 500 sometimes. So you have to have retry logic around it. Uh, and therefore, if you want to run them locally, you don't want that slowness and flakiness. When you run them locally, you just want it to run against a committed file. It works every single time and it's fast. It's just pure JavaScript. So that's the main reason. You don't want that slowness and flakiness to exist in the local ones. So that means that we'll probably have to have the same sort of thing like for GraphQL, which is like generate, you know, uh, generate markdown examples, right? Generate test markdown examples, like, but that will just be like a rake task you run that generates them, but doesn't maybe necessarily commit them. The CI job will commit them.
And
Maybe I'm
how?
wrong, but like separating those out from a pipeline perspective, I think will make it a lot easier to reason about.
Oh, yeah, I imagine that we are gonna focus in the pairing session in actually generating the fixtures, and we can take care of the CI part uh, in another time, right? So we can continue discussing it in the first session.
And another reason to commit them is then you have Git source control and the history to show you where the API has changed, and that has on a previous project on Pivotal Tracker we did that same sort of thing like for the documentation of the API, but we had it driven by some files that were committed in, like for the request and the response. So then it was really easy to see when the shape of your API changed. Sometimes it was intentional, sometimes it was unintentional, like it was a regression. So like when you have all of that output checked in, you could say, hey, we changed the way we rendered, tables. Was that supposed to happen? Or was it a regression? If it was a regression, then we don't need to deal with it. We need to fix the original bug. And having all of that history there lets you know the answer to that question.
Yeah, now I'm understanding better. My main concern was like we were committing like this every time that we run the CI job. But it's not gonna
No,
happen
only when
because
they change or we add a new markdown feature.
exactly it's not. And then the GitLab UI release. My second concern was a GitLab UI release process. We only have to mark those commits as shorts, and that won't generate a new GitLab UI release. So I think
Yeah, instead
that's right.
it's fixture data like any other test data we have. It lives somewhere under fixtures, I assume.
Yeah, that sounds very good. Okay,
Yeah, that's
so
why I wanted to help. It's similar to stuff I've worked on in the past, and there's like some subtle things that you could make it. It could be more complex or simpler, depending on how you approach it.
yeah, I think that experience is gonna be very beneficial. Cool. So when does tomorrow work for both of you? Same time.
Tomorrow, yes,
What time is it for you, Himanshu?
it's 3 p.m. right now,
Yeah,
3:15, so it works.
I mean, as long as there's no conflicts. A little bit later, I wouldn't mind. 6:30 is a little early.
Oh, it's
The-
6:30 now.
well, this meeting was, yeah.
Sorry, Chad. What
No,
what
it's okay.
about
I wasn't even invited to this one, but
But what about 1 hour later? Does it work
Yeah,
for you, you mentioned?
that's
Yeah, yeah, it works for me. 1 hour, maybe even 2 hours later works for me.
Yeah, the only thing that I have 2 hours is the front end call, but I think that I can skip that one. So
Yeah,
I'm
so
gonna
1 hour later works better. So we don't have to skip the front end call then.
sounds good. Okay, so I'm gonna send invites for 2 hours later.
Okay, sounds good.
Chat, I think that you are speaking, but we cannot hear you.
I forgot to unmute. No, that's I have a one-on-one with Roman then. So
Okay.
I mean, 6:30 is fine if it's tomorrow. Like there's other meetings tomorrow.
We can do it on Wednesday as well.
Yeah, yeah, Wednesday also works for me.
That would be better.
Yeah, I'm gonna set it up for Wednesday and do it like 11. Well, 11 my time. That is like 2 hours after this meeting starts. Good. Cool. So I think that we are done now. So thank you, everyone,
Yeah.
and have a good day.
All right.